Good afternoon, everyone. Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas who was killed in an Israeli military operation in Gaza yesterday, was a brutal, vicious terrorist responsible for the death of American citizens, Israelis, and civilians from more than 30 countries across the world. His decision, and it was very much his decision, to launch the terrorist attacks of October 7th, unleashed a year of tragedy in the Middle East. A few things about that. First of all, as you know, we've been trying to achieve a ceasefire that returns the hostages home, alleviates the suffering of the Palestinian people, and ends the war for many months now. And the chief obstacle to reaching that ceasefire and bringing it into the war has been Sinwar, who has refused to negotiate at all in recent weeks and has said no time and time again. That obstacle has obviously been removed. So you know the proposal that has been on the table for some time. We're going to be trying to push that proposal forward. We now have a different, well, we don't know who will be on the other end of the negotiating table now, but certainly won't be Sinwar. So there's a different, it is a very different situation. Now, I don't want to predict too much what our efforts will look like over the course of the days, because we are just hours after what is a seismic event that changes the nature of this conflict. But we believe it is an opportunity to try and bring it into this war, and we're determined to try and seize that opportunity.
But we've been watching as Israel has been conducting these counterterrorism operations in Gaza.
But what we would hope, is that whoever the next leader of Hamas is, he will look at what has happened over the past year and look at the suffering that Hamas's actions have brought upon the Palestinian people who they aim to represent, whose cause they aim to advance, and will look and decide that they ought to pursue a different path forward. They ought to pursue a path that isn't one of death and destruction and chaos and harm to Israeli civilians and harm to Palestinian civilians, but one that the United States has presented, that Egypt has presented, that Qatar has presented, that other countries in the region and around the world have presented and endorsed. And so that's what we'll be pushing for.
Is unrelated, so how can you de-link the ceasefire in Gaza from the fighting in Lebanon?
Israel still has a right to take on that threat, and they still have a right to try and put pressure on Hamas and try and free the hostages that remain there. But ultimately, we think the path forward is not just to continue military operations that they will have to repeat over and over again. Because in our judgment, and in the judgment of our partners in the region and our partners around the world, a path forward that doesn't include the reconstruction and security and rebuilding and a political path forward in Gaza is not a path that will actually provide an end to the war. And that's what we want to see ultimately, is an end to the war.
Expected Israeli retaliatory strike on Iran for its earlier ballistic missile attack on October 1st.
I would make clear to anyone who is considering harming any hostage, American or otherwise, that they will be held accountable. They should be held accountable in the same way that Yahya Sinwar was held accountable for murdering civilians and taking them hostages. Thank you.